Good evening, everybody. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com, live in the old home office, a few hours after Purdue's blowout loss to Penn State in the championship game of the Big Ten Tournament, ending one of the most disappointing seasons in Purdue basketball history. I think. Actually, hang on. I'm actually now being told Purdue actually won this game. Won the Big Ten Tournament championship, unifying the belt with the Big Ten regular season championship. They won their 29th game, and they're now headed to the NCAA Tournament as a number one seed. Sorry, I didn't watch the game. I just followed along with what fans were saying on Twitter and the message boards. So my fault. Anyway, this is your wrap video following Purdue's harrowing 67-65 win over Penn State in the Big Ten Tournament title game. I'm not sure if my neurological infrastructure has healed yet to the point where I can properly execute a joke. I'll let you be the judge of that. But seriously, guys, enjoy the ride. This has been a fun season that has exceeded all expectations for Purdue, and today was a panic attack unlike anything I've seen last season. And last season was a 6-month-long panic attack. Anyway, so Purdue hangs on, a 17-point lead, gets down to 2 there at the end. Braden Smith forces a travel on what would have been the go-ahead three-pointer for Penn State, probably the game-winning three-pointer. A really nice play by Braden Smith there at the end to stymie that three-pointer without fouling, without even coming close to fouling. Very, very reminiscent to the job he and Ethan Morton did at the end of the Ohio State game in Columbus to take away their chance to win the game or tie the game, whatever the circumstances were. So Ross-Ade again carries Purdue, as he has a couple times against Penn State this season. But also, I think that you have to give a lot of credit to some other guys here. I think David Jenkins has been a revelation here in the postseason with his shot making. You know, it's just kind of funny how we, back in the summer, back in the spring, Purdue needed a point guard. But, Purdue also needed a shot maker. And, whereas David Jenkins is not that pure Chris Paul point guard, he is a point guard enough to give Purdue what it needs, but the shot making he's given them has been an absolute godsend for Purdue, especially here in this postseason thus far. He gives you 11 points, makes 3 threes. What he's done to Ohio State this year was no small deal, and he's warming up at the right time, that's for sure. He is you just don't know where Purdue would be without him. I mean, he's not a starter. He's not a huge minutes guy for the most part, but he has won Purdue games this year. There are games this year that Purdue won that they would not have won if it was not for David Jenkins. You just cannot give him enough credit for what he's done in that regard, but also what he's done as a teammate, as a part of this team, as somebody who's enjoyed the ride, as somebody who has checked his ego, so to speak, somebody who's used to having the ball in his hands all the time, somebody who's used to scoring a hell of a lot, who's just not in that role anymore. And you just can't give him enough credit kind of all across the board. So that was the first thing I wanted to say from this game. Second, I think a couple of really positive things have happened here in this postseason, one of which I just mentioned. David Jenkins' shot making has been really something, but also Brandon Newman's on-ball defense. I think twice in 24 hours or something like that, you put him on Bruce Thornton for Ohio State, and then you put him on Jalen Pickett for the most part against Penn State. And he does a really good job on both of those guys, and I think that's easy to overlook. He's a better on-ball guy than he is an off-ball guy from a defensive perspective, and I think that really showed up the past 2 games. And it showed up at a time where Purdue needed somebody to do that because, at this juncture of the season, people have figured out enough about Purdue to know that you can body up their guards, especially their young guards, a little bit and have some real success. So when you have these big, strong guys like David Jenkins and Brandon Newman, and they do a good job on the ball from a defensive perspective, that really helps you, obviously. And I think Brandon Newman's kind of the face of that. He did a really, really good job today from a defensive perspective. And good for him. Ross-Ade again just dominates Penn State. They just don't have anybody. I think Kebba Jai is going to be a really good player for them. I thought Purdue should have taken him out of high school or recruited him out of high school because I think him coming out of a redshirt year at Purdue is a very different thing than him playing at Penn State this year when he's not ready physically. But I think he's going to be a really good player. But right now, Penn State just doesn't have anybody who can match up with Ross-Ade, and that has been illustrated in more than once this season, most notably today, as he gets 30 points and 13 rebounds. Again, sometimes the best shot for Purdue is just any shot because you get it up on the rim and Ross-Ade's there on the offensive glass, and that has just been such a weapon for Purdue this year. He gets 6 offensive rebounds in this game. There are a couple of really big ones there too, and Purdue gets its normal 21 second chance points. That is the biggest weapon, in my opinion, Purdue's had all season. Beyond individual players, I think their biggest elemental weapon this year has been their offensive rebounding, and today was a great example of that. So I think, obviously, Purdue goes in the NCAA tournament here with a couple of championships. That's a really good thing. That's obviously a really positive thing. And if you believe in atonement, I think Purdue has, atoned for last season. Not that it necessarily needed to. Every team is different, but Purdue should have won both of these championships last year and won neither of them. And then when you least expect it, look what happens. Purdue turns right around the next year with a less talented team and wins both the regular season title by 3 games and then wins the Big Ten tournament as well and gets in the NCAA tournament as a number 1 seed. You couldn't have predicted this in your wildest dreams, prior to the season. And it's really been something what Purdue's been able to do this year, obviously. I think you're going into this with some concerns here. I think the 2 freshman guards are looking a little bit vulnerable. That they're having some ups and downs, whereas they were so consistent most of the season. That's going to be a concern. I think the NCAA tournament, nothing is guaranteed, obviously, in the tournament. You run in the wrong referee, you have a bad shooting night, you miss a couple free throws, all of a sudden, everything, poof. That's why I think it was so important for Purdue to win these 2 regular season championships. This was a special season for Purdue, and now they have a couple of really, really significant things to show for it, a couple banners to hang, and something that history, we'll look back on as validation of how special this season has been for Purdue. Whereas last season, you left some stuff on the table, and I think that's a regret a lot of those guys will carry with them for quite some time because Purdue was better than its outcomes last season by a wide margin, no less. So Purdue goes to the NCAA tournament to Columbus to face either Texas Southern or Fairleigh Dickinson, my hometown university, in the first round, and then either Memphis or another team in the second round. Sorry, I forgot. But probably Memphis, I would have to say. I think, Purdue is, Purdue still has to be better than it has been. I think they have to, I think you're still at the mercy of that bad shooting night. I think you're still at the mercy of the officials because you play through Ross-Ade so much, and that's such a crapshoot sometimes. But I also think, and I say this every year, and I'll say it again, once you get out of Big Ten play, once you get out of everybody in the league knowing everything you do, and once you get away from those Big Ten officials, things change, and they often change for the better. And I think I again think that's what will happen for this Purdue team. I think that things will open up a little bit. Purdue will not run into some of the same obstacles from an offensive perspective that they've run into at the end of the Big Ten season here with the over-scouting and the great coaching and all of that stuff. And, things will open up a little bit for Purdue. I know what everybody wants to talk about right now because if I ran a clickbait business, I could put the word press in every headline and I would get millions of clicks because it's Purdue fans' favorite topic right now. Purdue's problem against the press more than anything is that it keeps getting out to these big leads and it invites it. And everybody looks bad against the press. Everybody looks suspect against the press. Go watch a hockey game when one team pulls its goalie. One team is desperate. One team is just kind of hanging on, and it's just a mess. I don't. I will break down the turnover numbers tomorrow, but I don't think Purdue's turnover percentage against the press is any worse than it is overall. Obviously, they made some critical errors late here against Penn State with the tie-up of Mason Gillis there inside the half-court line, and then the play by Brandon Newman where he threw the ball back toward his own basket and basically gave Penn State 2 points. From a personnel perspective, you generally have 3 ball handlers on the floor and you have 2, quasi-post players. And, before the season, I kind of theorized that maybe Purdue would operate with a lineup, a niche lineup, a penalty-killing unit type of lineup where Caleb First would move to the 5, Ethan Morton would play the 4, and then you would have 3 guards around him, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and probably Brandon Newman, maybe David Jenkins, one or the other. That was before I knew that Zach-Edey would be the best player in the country and that Purdue would need him on the floor for offense. So that's never really materialized, if it was even ever on Matt Painter's radar screen. So, Purdue just has to make better decisions against the press. It's not like they don't know how to do it. They played Marquette, they played Florida State, and they played West Virginia in the preseason, and they dominated those presses. It's a matter of just getting in these situations where the opponent's desperate, and their desperation seems to bleed into anxiety on Purdue's part. That's a poise issue. It's not necessarily a know-how issue. Do they make the best decisions all the time? No, they do not. But that can stem from anxiety as much as it can actual know-how. I know people love to point to the press as Purdue's Achilles heel and what will beat them in March. But if Purdue's up 15 points with 5 minutes to go in March, that would be a good problem to have, because that's when Purdue has been at its worst against the press, is when they're dominating a game. They're up big in the second half. Iowa being one example, today being another example. And if you thought Penn State was just going to go away, you didn't watch any of this Big Ten tournament, because they had an absolutely awesome run in Chicago, and it didn't surprise me at all that they made a run. It surprised me that it got all the way down to 2, but it didn't surprise me Penn State had one more significant run in it. So Purdue goes off to the NCAA tournament now. It has been a hell of a season, and as you know, there's nothing guaranteed in the NCAA tournament ever. But this has been a hell of a season for Purdue, and don't lose sight of that. If I may say that to you guys, I'm not here to tell you how to think. I'm just saying it's been a hell of a season, and it's worth enjoying if you're a Purdue partisan. And I got the sense today that people aren't enjoying this anymore. The context of this season entirely changed, probably in Portland, and then when Purdue won the Big Ten championship. But this is still the same team that's playing 2 freshman guards. This is still the same team that has a bunch of guys in brand new roles. This is still a team that has one player carrying outsized influence over the whole team, over every outcome, and that's kind of the way it is. But, Purdue's won a couple of championships here, and that's something really special. So that's what I got here, guys. From the old home office, this is Brian Neubert from goldenblack.com. Thank you to the Purdue Union Club Hotel for your support. I forgot to mention you up top once again. I was too fixated on my stupid joke. So I will talk to you again probably after the NCAA tournament games, depending on my situation. I do have some physically taxing things that are going to be happening to me starting next week. So hopefully I can still cut these videos. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. Thank you for listening. And thank you for processing our materials, however it is you process our materials. And stay tuned to our site for Mike Carmen's coverage from Columbus starting, I guess it'd be Thursday. So thanks a lot, everybody.